Welcome in to another video. Day one NFL free agency has been wild. There have been a lot of crazy signings, a lot of trades that have happened just today. And all of these signings and agreements and stuff don't actually go to be official until Wednesday. But most of these end up becoming official, so we're going to talk about them like they're official. We're going to go through here team by team and kind of just discuss the craziest, ill-advised, any kind of thoughts I have on the first day of NFL free agency and kind of where each team may go based on what they've done so far in free agency. Starting here in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills were able to re-sign their center in Connor McGovern, who I think is a very good center, and I was surprised that they were able to make the money to get him to re-sign, along with the DJ Moore trade, which I think is a little nearsighted for the Bills in the sense that they're giving away a second-round pick for a guy who's a little older and has not had a great last few years in the NFL when it comes to production. And they're already in the red when it comes to cap space. So I really wonder how much of a move this is just purely out of desperation. Miami Dolphins had one free agency signing so far with their release of Tua Tagovailoa, who has a giant cap hit going into next season. This is about probably all they'll be able to do, and Malik Willis has shown he can be an accurate quarterback with dynamics of being a pocket passer and being able to run the ball. I think this is a good signing for Miami, who is in a full changeover from the last regime of Mike McDaniels to Jeff Hafley, who is bringing in a guy with him from Green Bay in Malik Willis. The New England Patriots really haven't made that many moves. The signing of Draymond Jones, from what I understand, isn't that crazy. Apparently, Mike Vrabel loved him when he was with Tennessee. So from him going from Tennessee to the Ravens and now to New England, it kind of makes sense for them needing help on their defense. I'll also say expect the Patriots to probably either go defensive back or wide receiver with their first pick in the first round of this year's NFL draft based on what we're seeing. The New York Jets have two picks going into this draft, two first-round picks going into this draft. They've made a bunch of acquisitions on defense, 2 edges, 2 interior D linemen, an aging Demario Davis, and a trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick, which was, I wouldn't say as big as the Max Crosby trade. We'll get to that. But I think this Minkah Fitzpatrick deal in trading for him and signing him to a 3-year extension, I think is a good move for the Jets, who desperately need help on defense, and they're really trying to attack this in this free agency class and probably potentially go wide receiver in the first round with one of their later picks. Now with the Baltimore Ravens, nuke of a trade, trading 2 first-round picks for Max Crosby, who has been a top 5 edge rusher the last 5 or so years. Didn't have the huge sack numbers last year, but was one of the best run defending edges in the NFL. And plays like 90 to 95% of snaps every game, which is insane. I wouldn't be surprised if they try to limit that a little bit and let him potentially be a little more dominant on the snaps that he is on the field for. Bengals, paying Boye Mafe 3 years, $60 million for him only having 2 sacks last year in a Seattle defense where it seemed like everyone was getting theirs is a little wild to me, but I think the re-signing of Dalton Risner is good. Try to keep Burrow, safe in the pocket. I thought Dalton Risner was a pretty good guard for them last year. And the other 2 deals are I would say mid to okay at best. Re-signing Jalen Davis and signing Brian Cook, they're both good. I think it's just them trying to make their defense a little bit better, but we'll see what goes that way. The Cleveland Browns have no offensive line, and so the only things they've done so far in the offseason being a guard signing, which I didn't even think they'd have the money to sign one, and a trading for a tackle in Titus Howard and then extending him for $63 million. I don't know where they're getting this money. I don't know how they're doing this. I think that both of these moves are lateral from the guys that they had. The only difference is these guys are younger, so maybe that's what they're hoping for. Pittsburgh Steelers, not a huge amount of deals done, but I think they're all really good deals. I think the Michael Pittman trade is really good. I think it's going to help open up DK Metcalf on the deeper passes and have Michael Pittman be the route runner and be able to have him catch digs over the middle and sit in zones and let DK kind of do his thing down the field. I think Cole Holcomb is a pretty good backup linebacker for them, and I think he's a solid for a 2-year, $5 million deal. That's a good deal to keep him in Pittsburgh. This Jamel Dean signing is, I think, a good move for them. They aren't really getting younger by signing him, but I think they're helping pick up slack where some of those older guys that they had in their locker room that they aren't bringing back, kind of lateral in that sense that, they're just getting an older corner. But I think he definitely is going to make their defensive back room look better, and Asante Samuel re-signing I think is a good move. Moving on to the AFC South, the Houston Texans have done a bunch of re-signing guys they already have. Signing Danielle Hunter to a 1-year, $40 million extension to kind of shift some money around and keep him through the 2027 season, I think is really good. And then signing Reed Blankenship to play safety for them, I think is a really good move. I think Reed Blankenship is a good safety, and only signing him for about $25 million across 3 years, I think is a really good move for them. Along with trading for David Montgomery, I think those were two huge acquisitions outside of their general re-signings. Here's a big one. The Indianapolis Colts obviously traded Michael Pittman to the Steelers after signing Alec Pierce to a 4-year, $114 million deal that can be up to $116 million. For a guy who catches less than 70 passes a year, I think less than 60, he did just hit 1,000 yards for the first time, and he is young, so I do think this will get better, but that is a huge contract for a guy who is a deep threat. And yes, the deep threat and the deep ball is extremely effective and extremely efficient when it hits. I'm intrigued to see what they do with him and how they utilize him going forward. While it's a good signing, I think it was a huge contract and maybe an overpay. Daniel Jones, transition tag, he'll still be with the Colts next year. Jacksonville Jaguars have really done nothing but just re-sign their own guys. They traded away draft capital, so they don't have a first-round pick this year. Hopefully Travis Hunter can live up to those 2 first-round draft picks they traded for him, and he can play better on the defensive side, which it sounds like he's going to be playing a lot more corner this year. Other than that, I think Dennis Gardeck is a good re-sign. He played pretty well coming in for them. And I think they lost some free agents that they are going to regret losing, specifically Devin Lloyd, which we'll talk about him in a minute as well. But I think for the most part, they're going to hopefully try and hit on their draft picks this year and try to maintain their upward trajectory they had after this last season. Tennessee Titans have been big spenders in free agency, and I think most of them are pretty good deals. I'm not a huge John Franklin Myers fan. I think he's okay, pretty good. But I think a 3-year, $63 million deal is a little steep for my liking. But pairing him next to Jeffrey Simmons is going to be a good move. I think having them next to each other will bring some pass rush. Along with trading for Jermaine Johnson, they didn't think that T'Vondre Sweat was in the cards for their long-term success, trading him and getting Jermaine Johnson back for 1 year to see if he's worth it to re-sign. I think improving their offensive line with Austin Schultman and Cordell Volson, small deals, but I think are going to be better than what they have now. And signing Wan'Dale Robinson, who is coming over with Brian Dable, I think is going to be a good security blanket. Both of these corner signings are really good. I think Alontae Taylor going for 3 years, $60 million is fully worth that. He played great for the Saints, and I think is going to be a stellar cornerback for them. AFC West, re-signing Sam Ehlinger, re-signing J.K. Dobbins is, I think, a show that they may not be looking to draft any running backs in the second round or whenever one falls to them in the first 3 rounds. They maybe are going to take one in the late rounds, day 3, and look to help out their offense in other ways through the draft. And I think that re-signing Alex Singleton and Justin Strnad after cutting Dre Greenlaw is more of a money saving than it is a bettering their defense. I think they already think their defense is really good, and they can get the aggregate of Singleton and Strnad and Greenlaw. They are probably assuming just wasn't worth the contract that they paid him. And here's a big one. Super Bowl MVP Kenneth Walker going to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs had a efficient run game last year, but it was never explosive and it wasn't very dominant. Efficiency and dominance don't always go together. They were efficient on getting some yards when they needed it, but it wasn't like it was taking over games for them and keeping their offense afloat. That was a lot of Mahomes doing it himself. So I think Kenneth Walker, while this is a big deal, 3-year, $45 million, so $15 million a year, I think this is completely worth it for what they're hoping to get out of Kenneth Walker, which is the big explosives that he can produce. Bringing back Travis Kelce for 1 year, I think he had a bad taste in his mouth, so I think that's a good signing. I do think he is going to be gone after this season. I just don't see him showing back up after this next upcoming year being anything what he's been the last 2 years, which is already on the downswing. Here's another team that did some big spending, the Las Vegas Raiders. Tyler Linderbaum, 3 years, $81 million, and then a bunch of defense. And Jalen Nailor, which it doesn't say the deal here, but I'm pretty sure it was like a 2 or 3 year deal and worth a little bit more than I thought he is even worth. So I think that should at least put some fire under some of the guys that are already there. But these defensive signings, Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker, I think are both pretty good signings. I think the Quay Walker deal is a little expensive for my liking. I think he's very one-track minded. He either thinks it's a run or it's a pass, and he's not very good at changing if it's a play action or a draw. He's a good athlete, and he's big, but I think the 3 years, $40 million is a little expensive for me. I do think Nakobe Dean is going to be a good signing for them at 3 years, 36. I really like that move. And then trading for Teron Johnson from the Bills and re-signing Eric Stokes, who I think is a good corner, should help out their defense a lot. I do not expect their defense to be really all that much better, but this will definitely help moving them in the right direction. Los Angeles Chargers made some good moves to help out their offense in signing Charlie Kolar, re-signing Trevor Penning, and signing Tyler Biadasz. I think the Biadasz signing is huge and going to help out that offensive line, potentially keep it more stable if guys go down. I really like Tyler Biadasz. I was surprised that the Commanders let him go. And Trevor Penning being basically a swing tackle and just a versatile O-lineman for them is okay. Charlie Kolar signing a big deal for them. He's a great blocker and kind of a safety blanket. I think it's going to be good for them with Omarion Hampton. And re-signing Khalil Mack to a 1-year deal and signing Teair Tart, I think are both good moves and helping a defense that already was good last year. And we'll see what this new defensive coordinator can do with the pieces that he was left with. Moving on to the NFC, we're starting with the NFC East. Re-signing Javonte Williams, 3-year, $24 million deal, I think is a good move. He played great. He looked like his rookie year self. I kind of expected this one. They can keep a guy who's been in the system and they know what they're getting out of him. I like the George Pickens franchise tag, hopefully to work out another contract for him, if not, at least keep him on the team for another year. The Rashawn Gary trade, I think, is a really good move for them. And he's a pretty good run defender, and I think putting him on the other side of Ezra can help the pass rush along with Quinnen Williams and Kenny Clark. This and potentially a linebacker in the draft will make this defense look way better than it's looked the last few years. along with signing Jalen Thompson, who I think is a pretty good safety. New York Giants getting Tremaine Edmunds after the Bears cut him. I think that's a good signing. Obviously, he was going to be more expensive than what the Bears ended up getting and wanted to pay him, but I think he's still a good linebacker, and I think he's worth this deal. Along with re-signing Jermaine Illuminor, I think he's a great lineman. And bringing in Isaiah Likely following Harbaugh from Baltimore to New York, I was surprised because I think Theo Johnson is a really good tight end, but with running 2 tight end sets with Scadaboo in the backfield, as long as he's healthy, I think it'll be a good move, and having 2 receiving threats at tight end is going to be a mismatch against linebackers. The Philadelphia Eagles re-signed Jordan Davis to a contract extension, which surprises me because you would think that you would want to re-sign Jalen Carter to an extension, especially one this big. It makes me wonder if they are planning on re-signing Jalen Carter, or if they're planning on trying to trade him, if there's something behind the scenes that they don't want him on the team after his rookie deal. And so maybe Jordan Davis is the guy they look at and think, okay, we're going to keep one of the 2, and Jordan Davis is up first, and I think he's worth it. So Eagles, I don't really know how to feel about this, but they usually are on the right side of things like this. Washington Commanders have been big-time spenders in free agency after cutting some guys and making a lot more cap space. Re-signing Marcus Mariota, re-signing Treylon Burks, which I actually thought played pretty well last year. They're losing Deebo Samuel, so I think that Treylon Burks is a pretty good replacement if he can continue to improve on what he showed last year. Signing Laramie Tunsil to an extension to help protect that blind side of Jaden Daniels is really good. Re-signing Nick Allegretti, it's a little weird phrasing here, but I think he played well, and I think he's going to be good. And same with Wiley. Dafe Owe to play edge for them, I think is a really good signing, but $100 million is really steep. He played well on the other side of Khalil Mack, so I wonder if him and Dietrich Wise and the rest of that edge group is going to allow Owe to excel at like he did in the Minter system with Khalil Mack. But who knows, maybe they draft another edge, or maybe linebackers in the cards for them at 7. Along with bringing in a D-tackle in Tim Settle and bringing in a corner like Amik Robertson, I think is a good move. NFC North. Bears had a semi-quiet free agency so far. I think that they're not going to be the winners of free agency this year like they have been. I like the Case Keenum re-sign. Apparently him and Caleb Williams are super close, and he's been a big help on helping Caleb develop in the Ben Johnson system. Braxton Jones to help fill up some O-line help with Trapilo not being able to play probably majority of next season. And trading for Garrett Bradbury, who I have my gripes with, but I think just having an experienced guy there to replace the retired now Drew Dahlman is something that they were thinking might be too expensive to address in free agency, so we might as well trade for one. I do like their defensive moves. I really wish they had re-signed either Byard or Brisker, and they still can. Both of them remain unsigned, but signing Kobe Bryant for a 3-year, $40 million deal I think is a good move. He played great in the Super Bowl and throughout the playoffs and all of last season. And re-signing DeMarco Jackson, who played great with both Edmonds and Edwards getting hurt, and signing Devin Bush, who has had a breakout season this last year, and 3 years, $30 million, $10 million a year on average, is cheaper than Tremaine Edmonds, and he's a younger, faster linebacker, and they need to get fast. Along with the Neville Gallimore, who I think is a pretty good athlete from the Colts, but we'll see what he does and maybe a bigger role with the Bears. I have not liked the Lions' free agency so far. They've addressed O-line, but I think the only one that's worth anything is Cade Mays, who played good for the Panthers, but obviously not good enough for them to want to re-sign him. I think Larry Borum is a below-average replacement O-lineman at best, and I think Juice Scruggs is about the same, but maybe they think they can develop them into playing better. The Green Bay Packers let some guys go, traded away some guys, hopefully to get some draft capital and stuff back. And I think the Zaire Franklin alongside Edgerrin Cooper will help. I think Zaire Franklin's okay, and I would say I probably like him better than Quay Walker when it comes to being a reactive linebacker and being able to read our offense and react instead of just reacting right away and being wrong. And I think the Sean Rhyan re-signing is good for an O-line that's had some problems with injuries and just released Elton Jenkins and some other guys. So we'll see where this goes if they continue to make moves going into days 2 and 3 in free agency. Minnesota Vikings signing James Pierre and Eric Wilson. I think those are good deals to help out their defense, but I'm really surprised they didn't try to make a splash move on some corners that were in free agency. NFC South, big one, with Tua Tagovailoa being released from the Dolphins. He is now being brought in to be the backup and replacement for Michael Penix as long as he is injured. And who knows, maybe he could even win that starting role. I am not a huge believer in Penix in the sense of him being able to stay healthy and create. I think if you get good Michael Penix, you can get a good Michael Penix. And if you get bad Michael Penix, you're getting Michael Penis. I think Jahan Dotson and Olamide Zaccheaus are both good free agent signings after letting Darnell Mooney go. Bringing in Austin Hooper and franchise tagging Kyle Pitts are both good moves. And I do like the Christian Harris signing for their defense. I think he is a pretty good run defender, and I think he'll be able to help that defense out a little bit. That's going to need it. And they'll probably draft majority defense and probably O-line in this upcoming draft class. Carolina Panthers, big one. Jalen Phillips, 4-year, $120 million deal. They need help on the edge and rushing the passer, and I think Jalen Phillips can do that. My problem with it is I don't think he's a 1A pass rusher on a 1A pass rusher deal. So we'll see if him plus the guys that they already have in Nick Scorton and whoever else they have at edge, I'm kind of losing their names right now. We'll see if that group can pass rush better, and maybe they'll go linebacker in the draft to help their run defense next or behind Derek Brown. I think that this is a really bad free agent class for the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints needed to get cheaper and not sign a guy like Travis Etienne for $52 million over 4 years. Well, what are we doing? I know you want to get help for Tyler Shuck, but a running back is not the way to do that, especially with a team that has, so much money sunk into areas of their team that haven't been coming out on the positives, and maybe they do more restructuring, but I do think the David Edwards signing will help in that run game, but Noah Fant, I don't really know how I feel about this signing. I feel like, he's just a big body. Who knows if he's actually going to be worth anything in their offense. Tampa Bay Buccaneers didn't do much. Re-signed Cade Otton and signed Kenneth Gainwell and Alex Anzalone. I think Anzalone's a pretty good linebacker, and I think he'll be able to step in for the Levante David role if Levante David's gone, and if he's not, then them playing next to each other I think is good. I just think it's a little slow. And I think Kenneth Gainwell showed that he's still a good running back, and putting him with Bucky Irving and Rachaad White, who both can be somewhat injury prone, as a scat back kind of third down, change of pace back, and he's always been, a healthy, durable player. I think is a good move for Tampa Bay, who just was extremely injured last year. Arizona Cardinals, I think that both the Kendrick Bourne and Tyler Algier signings are good. I like the Isaac Seumalo signing, but they didn't really do much on defense. LJ Collier and Roy Lopez both are rotational defensive linemen, and I think that this means they will commit to going hard on defense in the draft, or maybe an offensive tackle and then defense. But I do like the Kendrick Bourne signing. I think him, Marvin Harrison, and Michael Wilson will be a great trio. alongside of Trey McBride, and then having James Conner and Tyler Algier as a running back duo. I really like Tyler Algier and how he plays, and I think if the Falcons never drafted Bijan and instead went a different route, they would still be just fine with Algier at the backfield. Obviously not as dynamic, but still a good running back. The Los Angeles Rams, obviously trading for Trent McDuffie and signing him to an extension, as well as taking Jalen Watson from the Chiefs. So they're basically just taking the Chiefs' defensive backcourt. Re-signing Cam Curl is a good deal, and re-signing David Quessenberry I really like. I'm not super high on the Tyler Higbee re-signing. I think that they have plenty of tight ends that are just as good, and Higbee's getting old, but maybe it's more of a Stafford comfortability thing, and they have the money somehow after all these re-signings. But they're going all in to win this Super Bowl next year, and I like the moves that they made. Mike Evans leaving the Buccaneers was not on my bingo card for this year. I think Mike Evans is an eventual Hall of Famer with what he's been able to do consistently for so long. And I think him in that Kyle Shanahan offense alongside of Ricky Pearsall, and I doubt George Kittle next season, but we'll see. I think both of those are good. I think that's like a good trio plus McCaffrey. And I think having a go up and get the ball guy for Brock Purdy being able to throw the ball downfield will move the needle for their offense. And Lowe signing, I don't know much about him. It's probably a pretty good signing. I trust Kyle Shanahan when he signs offensive linemen. Seattle Seahawks, to round out this video, re-signing Rashid Shaheed to a 3-year, $51 million contract and re-signing Joshua Jobe. The Seattle Seahawks didn't utilize Kenneth Walker like they could have because of Zach Charbonnet, and I think that they saw that and were like, okay, let's let someone else go pay him. We liked Zach Charbonnet enough to use him 50-50. We can draft another running back. I am surprised about the Rashid Shaheed signing, and I think that it's a little expensive, but they do like his speed and his return ability, and who knows, maybe he will take that next step into being a good deep threat and not just like a 1 or 2 off where he's able to eventually burn the guy downfield but can actually make separation off of the initial line of scrimmage. So overall, I think a very eventful first day in free agency. I think some of the biggest winners so far have been teams like the Rams and the Titans. I also think that a team like the Commanders and the Cowboys, honestly, I thought won as well. As for other AFC teams, I thought that Pittsburgh made some moves that I liked without spending a ton of money. And obviously the Max Crosby trade is a huge win for Baltimore. And other than their O-line, they really have no excuses to not make a huge run at this thing for the Super Bowl next year. Some of my losers, I would say, are probably teams like the Patriots, the Saints, the Lions, teams that weren't able to do much, or when they did too much, in the sense that it almost doesn't make sense for what they're doing. But I think overall, an exciting first day in free agency. But that's just the opinion of a ball knower. See you later.